When we talk about width, it's the distance our hands are away from our body. This touch your arm, and this is going to stop you. All right, let's talk about building a fundamentally sound top of the swing. When we talk about width, it's the distance our hands are away from our body. We want to create that width at the top because a lot of times what I see with most golfers is the takeaway's poor, the arms get real narrow, there's no width, the arms are like pretty much right in my right ear here, and from there you can't control the club face, you can't create power, you can't create speed. So you should have already created width in the takeaway, right, if you watch the takeaway video. And then from here, all you have to do is finish your turn and get the arms and the hands away from the body. We don't want to get narrow like this, because then that's going to cause a casting and scooping. You can't create power. So I have a simple little drill you can do. When you go to the top of your swing, you're going to feel this touch your arm, and this is going to stop you from moving the arms so much in the golf swing, because you're going to see, you're going to bend and it's going to feel really awkward. Just take a few backswings, and just as soon as you feel that touch right there, you stop, and then if you need to make a bigger backswing, rotate more. That's the key. You have to rotate. We can't be an arm swing. A lot of people will take it back their arms and it'll hit them really, really fast. Turn your chest, get that width there, and then keep turning, and then see it hit me right there. If I need to make a bigger backswing, I just turn a little bit more, and then now I have a full turn, full backswing, but my arms didn't sway. I call it kind of an arm sway. The arms get behind us and we don't create that width at the top of your swing. And you can hit some golf balls doing this. Here, and then through. I don't really care what happens to it afterwards. If you look, you can see that was nice and short. So my arm hits it about right there, and then I stop, and right there I have a lot of width. My elbow's out in front of me, and I'm not over swinging. The club's not getting way behind me. Now that we talked about the arms at the top of the golf swing, let's talk about the structure at the top. Let's talk about the right elbow. So the thing about the right elbow is each one of you is going to have different limitations in your mobility in your shoulder. So like normal rotation would be, you have to be able to get past 90 degrees. So if I stand up tall, put my arm here, that would be normal amount of rotation. I get a lot of clients where this is as far as they can go. They can't get to, equal with my spine, and they can't go past, so they only get to here. If that's you, if you do this test and you can't get your arm past this position, and don't force it. If you have to force it, you're not going to be able to force it in your backswing because you're just not going to strain. So just go slow, and when you feel it get tight, you're done, right? Don't bend your back and just try to get it there. Just be honest with yourself and go, okay, if I can only get it to here or here, you have some shoulder stiffness. And so depending on your shoulder stiffness will depend on where that elbow is at the top of the swing. There's not one way it has to be, but there are pros and cons, and sometimes you just have to deal with it. So let's talk about the elbow. We want this elbow to be as tucked under as we can, but what I don't want you to do is sacrifice posture, because what a lot of people do is they go, okay, I got to get this to 90 degrees. So they get here and they do this, and you start seeing them bend like this. That's going to cause more problems. You have to maintain your posture at the top. So if your elbow has to be a little bit more out here, you just have to deal. But I do, if you can get it under, get it under. So now that you got the elbow as tucked under as you physically can, let's talk about where is it in relation to this way on our body, if you're looking at the face on camera here. People that overswing their arms, break the elbow, break their lead elbow, and then their trail elbow gets behind their head. I see this all the time. Gets behind their head like this. They lose all their width. This elbow's moving behind them. If we can feel the elbow stay out in front of us, and if you can see, straight down, my elbow's almost outside my feet. If I can keep it out there and not let my shoulder retract, because what I see a lot is a lot of shoulder retraction. Instead of maintaining that arm structure out in front of you, we just need to get rid of that retraction of that shoulder. So we're gonna go wide, we're gonna turn, and we're gonna keep this shoulder out in front of us and not let it retract into our body. Okay, so if you can get the width, you can get the elbow down and not let it retract, you're gonna be in a much better place. Now, let's discuss wrist angles, and then we're gonna talk about shaft position. So when it comes to wrist angles, everybody needs different wrist angles depending on what you need the ball to do as it flies. Now, just some things to understand. Across the line, which is this right here, let me hit a shot, let me explain across the line, and then I'll explain what a flat golf swing is, and then I'll explain what a on-plane golf swing is. So here. All right, if I go to the top of the backswing and I stop right there, and then what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna take a line, I'm gonna draw from the ball through the hands, and you're gonna see that anytime my club is on this side of the line, that's across the line. If the club is on this line, it's on plane. If it's on this side, that's what we call flat. Now, don't think of any of this as good or bad. Just, it's a style characteristic. There's been a lot of good players that have been across the line. There's been a lot of good players that are flat, and there's been a lot of good players that are on plane. Don't think there's one way to do this. Now, if you're struggling though, slicing the golf ball, across the line may not be such a good deal, because across the line typically means we have a really cupped wrist. So what I'm going to teach is, I just want you to get a flat wrist. Like I said, this doesn't match everybody. If you're just looking for a place to get started, let's get a really flat wrist. So instead of having a lot of flexion or extension, we want to have a really flat wrist. At the top of the golf swing, we want to get it as flat as we can, because extension makes us go really far across the line and it opens the club face. Because here's what I want you to see. If I grab this golf club and I go into flexion like this, look at the club face, it closes. If I go into extension, it opens. So if at the top of the swing I'm going into extension, I'm actually opening the golf club, which tends to create more timing. Some people, that's fine, because there are some players in extension. Extension is not necessarily a bad thing, but if you're a big slicer, that could be a problem, right? So going to a flatter wrist is generally a good idea for most golfers. Now we're gonna feel like we get this wrist flat. So this would be extension, which you can see is across the line. And then flexion would actually get me flat. You can see how flat that is, right? A lot of flexion, okay? And then somewhere in the middle is gonna get me about on plane. So let me get my arm in a better position here. So about right there. That's about a flat wrist, okay? So if you can develop a flatter wrist, you can take a tongue depressor, put it under your glove right there, a T, put it underneath right there, and if you see, a flat wrist is gonna be here. This would be obviously an extension. You would start to feel it bend into your body. This would be flexion. We want to try to get this as flat as we can at the top. You can use a credit card, that works really well too. Just something in there to kind of feel that wrist be flat. And then the final thing is, I'm gonna go ahead and teach you just to go ahead and be on plane at the top instead of across the line or flat. So how you do that is take a golf ball and take a club and take an alignment rod, and I want you to go ahead and grip it just like this. I got this in my arms like this, and what I want you to do is, we want to go to the top of the swing, wide here, and we want this alignment rod pointing either at the ball or just between the ball and in the middle of your feet. Somewhere right in here it needs to point. So if I take a tee, probably about a foot, somewhere about right there, that shaft needs to point. But when we go severely across the line, you're gonna see it's pointing way over there. If we're super flat, it's pointing way over there. This is gonna get us pretty close to neutral here. So we're gonna get a nice arm structure, elbow out in front of us, good rotation, and we're gonna point this about the ball and that tee, and that's gonna get us on a really close position. Now, here's how you practice this. So when it comes to practicing this, take it in stages. And really, don't focus on ball performance. Focus on swing performance. I think you need to be recording yourself and making a lot of practice swings, and maybe even just hitting into a net, or even if you get on the range, that's fine. Just don't worry about where the ball goes, because that is a lot to cover and a lot to fix. So I think it's important that you take it slow and you work slowly to build those positions. So it's gonna take time, because that's a very dynamic part of the swing, and it's typically a pretty hard place to make changes. So the faster you swing and the more normal you swing, the harder it's going to be to make changes. Now, if you really want to take this further and you need a plan to follow to build that backswing, I want you to subscribe to my practice plan. So down below, there's a link that you can click on where you can subscribe to get weekly practice plans based off these videos, and you can always go back and get them later. You can even download them so that you can have something to physically work on, and I'm going to walk you through it. So all you got to do is go to wfg.golf/practice plan, and you can develop a consistent golf swing through these different practice plans. So I hope this video was helpful. See you in the next video. Peace.